Have a seat on your porcelain throne. It's time to talk some shit on the Powell Movement.
Welcome to the Powell Movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and I hope all of you had a great holiday. I did what most of us Americans do. I watched football, I ate way too much food, and I played around with my new Insta360 camera. I'm still blown away by the tech in this thing. I'm posting a video a week on the gram that will tease the current week's episode and will let you know who's coming up next week. I've never done this before, and you can follow me on Insta at the Powell Movement to see those videos. And while I hope there's a lot to give thanks for in your world, lately, for the past 2 years, in mine, it's been hard to be thankful for much. Watching my partner battle cancer has been such a challenge. Then managing feelings, housework, a 15-year-old, doctor's appointments, and trying to have a little bit of a life is more of a challenge. Then add in another 40-hour-a-week job on top of this podcast, and it really has me at my wit's end sometimes. If you didn't know, I'm now employed by the good folks at diecutstickers.com. And if you need stickers, you can go to the site and save 15% with the code POWELL15. That's capital P-O-W-E-L-L, the number 15 with no spaces. Or you can email me at mike.powell@diecutstickers.com, and I'll take care of your sticker order, quote, your tents, or any of your promotional needs. And while I'm thankful for the DCS gig because it provides insurance, a great work environment, and a job I like, the thing I'm most thankful for is that ANS is lined up to be patient number 1 globally on an experimental trial this January. That's if everything works out, and right now it looks like it's going to. So there is something to be thankful for this holiday season on my end. And I have something for you to be thankful on your end. You betcha, another free podcast with arguably the most important up-and-coming skier since Sean Pettit. Ty Jones is the son of legendary TGR filmmaker Todd Jones, and he's already a bona fide super pro, and he has been for about 7 years. This 18-year-old badass is dropping a movie on December 3rd with TGR called Falling Into Place, and it takes you through his life and times and his horrible injury. I won't spoil it at all for you. I'll just say that this episode is a really good one. Before we get into it, I want to thank you for listening each week. I want to also ask you to tell a friend about the show. It really does help the show grow. And I want to ask you to subscribe wherever you listen. Once you've done that, I want you to please, please, please support my incredible sponsors who make this podcast happen. They are Insta360 Cameras, Elan Skis, Outdoor Research, Best Day Brewing, Stanley, and Thermic and Dissent socks. Now, it's time to chat with Kai Jones. It sounds like you're in Mexico right now. Does the Jones family do an annual family vacation before the season starts?
Yeah, we've been doing it for the past 3 years. And originally we did it because our grandparents were kind of getting sick of going to Jackson in the dead of winter for Christmas. So this is our time for family gathering.
And what's a vacation day like for the Jones family? I mean, are you guys constantly doing something like it seems like you guys would be, or do you actually relax?
I mean, it's pretty cruisy. Like we always wake up early, get out, surf, and we surf for like 3 hours today, and then cruise the beach, go to some super crip local Mexi spots for food, and then, yeah, just chillax. And yeah, everyone's playing pickleball and tennis right now and do some like workouts and stuff. But yeah, pretty fun, like just standard vacation. It's nice, especially before winter and stuff.
Yeah, because you grow up in the heart of winter. I mean, you didn't grow up in Jackson proper. You grew up in Victor. And when I think of that place, I always think of Greg Stump for some reason. And do you know that dude? And do you have a good Stumpy story?
That's actually funny that you say that. I grew up 5 minutes away from Stumpy, and I think he was a mentor to my dad, and my dad looked up to him, and we'd always go over to his house and have dinner. I was really little, so I don't recall an exact story, but I always remember going to his little garage, and he had all these like insane ski posters and music posters and instruments. And yeah, it was a really, really wild shop. And I think he moved out probably 6 to 10 years ago. So he hasn't been in our area for a minute now. I think he's either in like Sun Valley or maybe California. But yeah, growing up, we spent a lot of time over there because we were so close.
Nice. And so you live down the street from Stumpy, and your family is made up of athletic genes. We know about your dad and we know about your uncle. Is your mom a badass too?
Yeah, yeah. My mom's super rad. I'd say like I became the skier I am today because of my parents equally. My mom has the same passion as my dad and everybody else in our family. So yeah, I just really grew up like with ski culture ingrained into our family. And yeah, the energy is very mutual. So it's cool.
Okay. And your dad's an award winning cinematographer. When you think about that, if you're in Hollywood, you grow up in $100 million house, but this is the ski industry. Do you guys grow up rich, average, poor? What's life like for the Jones family?
It's funny because I feel like there's always like a misconception around TGR and the fact that it's like a production company and this media company, but it's always been really scrappy. My dad and Steve built it off of fishing money, and they moved out to Jackson and chased their dreams, and they just loved skiing and they wanted to find a way to make a living skiing as much as possible. And yeah, in the early days of TGR, we couldn't even afford to live in Jackson Hole. So I live in Victor, Idaho, and we've lived there ever since. And my family started their life there, and it's a really cool. And I think it was good, like growing up in a middle class household and going to public school at Driggs Elementary. And yeah, it was kind of like a crazy realization for me as I was growing up, like being around all these athletes and everything that TGR is. And I just love skiing, and it was simple for me. And as I started to fall more in love with it and become a fan of skiing, I got to know like all these athletes and stuff. So more than anything, it's been like a cool opportunity for me to like just be around like the energy and the scene. And yeah, it's super cool.
And when you think about what you've done your whole life, or at least your whole pro ski career life, which pretty much starts like 11 or 12, you put your life on the line all the time. I mean, there's a lot of risk in what you're doing. But when you're a child, when you're just coming up, were you one of those daredevil kids jumping off everything?
Yeah, totally. My dad has actually shown me this funny photo. We were up at a ski lodge and he was filming a segment, and I'm launching off a balcony onto this couch, and Tanner Hall's like right next to me. And yeah, I think I just like growing up around the whole like ski scene and everything like fostered me to be a risk taker at a young age. And I've always like just loved adrenaline and stuff. I played soccer and team sports for a while, but the second I had like a say in what I was doing gravity sports and action sports. And yeah, I just always loved it and have always been a super rambunctious kid, or at least that's what my parents have told me.
What's the jumping the house story?
So my mom was actually away visiting family in South Dakota, and we were having a big snow year, and the plow had backed in enough snow below the roof and shoveled in some snow on the landing after school. And then my dad grabbed a ladder from the garage, and yeah, I had like a little session jumping off the roof of the house and sent like a 360 and stuff. And then I remember we like uploaded the video online, and my mom was calling and she's like, "You let Kai jump off the roof?" So yeah, that was a good time. And I mean, that's a summary of my whole child. It's always been like super free. And I'm glad that my parents have give me and my brother like so much opportunity to like have our own decisions and do our own things. And I think it's like definitely made us to be like more adventurous kids.
When you think about how adventure starts or how your passion for skiing evolves in your life, when do you realize that you're going to make your life all about skiing? I mean, did that happen really young for you?
Yeah, so growing up, I just fell in love with skiing, and it was everything for me. And I remember being in school watching like ski videos and video parts in art class, and looking out the window for snow and just anticipating Friday to come along so we could get out and shred on the weekend. And yeah, at first, like those early days of skiing, going out with my family and friends and riding and progressing. And as I got to like understand the scene and the environment I was growing up in, I was really inspired by the individuals around me. And yeah, I fell in love with ski movies. And I remember the era of Way of Life and Almost Ablaze is when I like really started to think about skiing. And think about it more seriously. And I saw what those guys were doing. And I was like, that's the dream. What can I do today to make that a reality? And I started to push myself more and more, and never thought I would rise to being a pro skier so early. But I had a dream and a vision, and I believed in myself despite what other people said. And it's honestly pretty surreal how it all fell into place.
Were there a lot of naysayers? Like, were there teachers and people telling you that you might not want to put your eggs in one basket? Because I've heard that with other people, but other people didn't have like the dad that you have and the vision to see the track that you could actually go for to be a pro. Like, they had to figure it out on their own, where you kind of grew up in the situation where, yeah, you had all this talent and you put in all this hard work, but you also knew there was a path there. So were there people that were telling you that maybe you shouldn't do that?
Yeah, I feel so fortunate that I like have been able to see a path, and that my parents like understand that. And that's a situation that even like some of my friends that are gunning for skiing are having to figure out with their parents. But yeah, early on, I was starting to ski pretty hard, and I was competing on the IFSA circuit, and I won the North American Championships when I was 11, and a lot of the right things were happening, and I had like really big desires, and I would be like, I want to go up to Alaska. I want to do that. Like one day I'm going to do this. And I think some of my friends would just be like, yeah, I don't think you realize like how steep it is and like how gnarly that actually is. And I've always been able to push through negativity and stay aligned with like these dreams and visions that I've had. And I just like have never listened to people that were doubting, because I had the vision, I had the support with my dad and my mom, and all the right things were happening with my skiing, with competing and stuff. And yeah, I think like it's with anything in life, there always is going to be doubters when you have like big aspirations. But if you keep working hard and pushing past that, eventually they'll like see what you accomplish, and it becomes an actual reality.
And when you're the kid of a local legend, are people always kind of watching you and keeping tabs on you? And do you ever notice that and feel pressure from that? Like when you're skiing younger, like everybody's like, oh, that's Todd Jones's kid. Oh, that's a Jones kid. Did you understand that and feel that?
Like early on, I kind of like blocked a lot of that out. But as I started to like rise into the TGR scene, I definitely have recognized that. And there's pressure, and I think that's okay. As they say, diamonds are formed under pressure. But I just try and be, in general, like a good, respectful person, no matter what, and not leverage anything. So yeah, like there's definitely people like keeping tabs and looking around at what I'm doing and what I was doing when I was younger. And that's part of why I got those opportunities.
Yeah. And so you're a Grom, pretty much watching every TGR movie that's ever happened. I'm sure you're going back in the archives. But outside of TGR movies, do you watch anything else, or is that just like blasphemy at home?
No, I've always watched every bit of ski content that I can get my hands on. Every year, watch all the MSP movies, the Blank movies, all Sammy's video parts, Marcus's, like X Games week at my house. Like we're watching every contest. So I think we're just huge like fans of ski media, and like, yeah, we just love it.
And then when you think about ski media, the guy who helped make your movie Falling Into Place, which is the one that we're here to talk about, it comes out on December 3rd, was a guy named Clayton Vila, or is a guy named Clayton Vila. Clayton did some stuff with TGR back in his day, and he was part of the step crew, and his skiing was totally different than anything that you've really ever done, I feel like. Did you ever watch his skiing?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up like idolizing all the skiers in TGR, and I always loved Clayton's style and approach to skiing. And obviously, it was different than what I was doing, but I try and take things from skiers that I like, and I loved his style and creativity. So he was a big inspiration to me. And I remember when we were looking for an editor, we had talked to a couple people, and like Clayton made this film called Back to Life, Tornator Wallace's film.
Okay.
Super inspiring story. He had a run of trials throughout his career.
Yeah.
It was a really well done film, and I actually watched it in the hospital, and I'd always watched it like when I was going through a tough time to find inspiration. And I remember telling my dad, I was like, yo, like we should hit up Clayton and see how his schedule's looking. He's down in Hollywood filming like big commercials and Hollywood projects now. So he's hard to get his hands on. But my dad hit him with the classic, like, hey, we're looking for an editor. Like, by chance, do you know anybody? And he's like, oh, I've got some free time. I can maybe help you guys get this thing off the ground. And my dad gave him his first opportunity back in the day with Back to Life. I mean, that was the first film that Clayton directed, and it won Movie of the Year. And when my dad called, Clayton told me, he's like, yeah, I wanted to do your dad a favor, and I was just going to help get this thing off the ground. But he fell in love with the story, and he's been pretty tapped out of skiing. And it was cool to hear from him because he's quite the critique, but he said that he looked through all my footage and respected what I was doing. And I started diving into the footage. And originally, yeah, he was just going to get the first draft done, but he ended up playing the whole project through, and super thankful for him and his hard work and taking a shot on us.
And then when you think about the other athletes that you watched growing up, before you got to know any of these guys, who were your favorite skiers based on style, without personality or meeting them? Like when you were a kid, who were the guys that you wanted to see their segment?
Ooh, yeah. So when I was younger, my favorite skiers were Tim Durtschi, Nick McNutt, Sage Catabriga, and Ian McIntosh. Those were kind of the like top dogs at TGR. And obviously, like being in the TGR family, I was like super, super connected to those guys. So those were the guys that I was looking up to. Like, I want to like ski with them and do what they're doing one day, and whatever it takes to get there.
You're watching all these movies, you're seeing all these spots, and a lot of them are like right in your hometown at your home mountain, just because a lot of TGR shit comes out of Jackson and from the backcountry right around there. Do you watch the movies and then ask your dad to take you to certain spots? Like, what was your first big boy line that you remember?
I think my first big line I skied in Jackson was Central, and I was 9 years old, and you look at Central from the tram, and I'd seen videos of my dad skiing Central in old ski films. I think in Warren Miller, he rode Central, and in multiple TGR movies, riders have rode Central, and it's definitely a staple line in Jackson. And it was spring, and it was pretty much ski through. And I remember like telling my dad, like, dude, we should go ski Central. Like, look at how sick this thing looks. And he laughed and was like, I wrote that thing off 15 years ago. You're going to drag me back down there. And we went and did it. And that was like kind of the start. And that was, yeah, when I was 9 years old. And I always like just had like a knack for exploring and being out in the mountains. So the second I like figured out what something was, I would chase it. And my dad like has spent so much time in Jackson, so he's got to tow me into a lot of sick stuff.
When your dad is TGR, do you pretty much have cameras on you from the time you're 9? Like almost every time you're skiing, there are cameras on you?
Yeah. So my dad's a filmmaker. So
yeah,
like he's been capturing like our family's whole life, me and my little brother's whole life. And at like the early days of my skiing, I was making like little edits for my YouTube channel and entering the TGR Grom comp. And I was just loving skiing. And actually how I got the opportunity to film a TGR segment was they're doing this big extravagant night shoot in Corbett's Couloir. And we talk about this in the movie. The light guy from the shoot ended up bailing, and they were left short on a segment. And Jackson that year wanted to do something weird, and they had paid for a segment in the film. And TGR had done a segment with Daniel Tisi. I'm pretty sure it was in Way of Life. And my dad pulled up some clips of me, and he's like, me and Kai have been filming, and he loves this stuff, and he loves skiing. Like, what do you guys think? And the crew at Jackson was super stoked, and everybody else at TGR was like, oh, this could be fun. Like an 11-year-old kid ripping around Jackson. And then called up a bunch of people to see if they wanted to like go shoot this segment with this 11-year-old kid. And I think at first people were like not super down with going and skiing with the 11-year-old kid, but Durtschi answered the phone and he was super stoked on it. And it just shows to Tim's character. He's like such an open person, and it was really cool of him to take me under the wing. And that was kind of like going to probably be like a one-time thing. And it just absolutely like blew up on the internet and went viral. And my career's escalated from there.
It's time for my first sponsor break, and I'm going to start out with Insta360, a leader in action cameras and 360-degree technology. I just received my camera, and let me tell you, this is the coolest piece of technology I've owned in some time. I'm so stoked on my new camera. And why should you get one? Well, you can capture all the action on the slopes with the Insta360 X4. You can shoot a full 360-degree video in 8K resolution and then choose any single angle you want after your run to edit it in. It's so game-changing, and you can't miss the shot anymore. From immersive POV videos to third-person shots carving down the mountain, the X4 does it all. And when you're on the hill, you'll get over 2 hours of runtime at 5.7K and temperatures down to -4 degrees. It's waterproof, it's super tough, and it's easy to use with all your gear on. It's a social media content capturing machine. And guess what? I have a limited time offer for the first 30 Powell Movement listeners who buy an Insta360 X4 camera. You're going to get a free ski pole mount so you can record 360-degree action hands-free. Here's what you need to do. Head to store.insta360.com, buy an X4 camera, and when you check out, use the promo code POWELL, that's capital Powell, and you'll get this special gift with purchase. Next up, it's Elan Skis. And while I could tell you all about the new award-winning Ripstick ski models and then push you to demo them at your local shop because they'll make you have more fun on the mountain, I'm just going to talk about your local shop. There's something special about stepping into your local ski shop. The smell of the freshly waxed skis, discussion about where to find the best skiing, and expert advice makes these shops more than just a place to buy gear. We at Elan believe that ski shops are the soul of skiing. A place where skiers can come together for genuine human connection. And that can't be replaced by going online. Going to a ski shop is an experience where you want to connect with a like-minded person who understands what you're wanting to do and wants to share their knowledge with you so you can have a good time doing something they love to do too. Shops are among the last authentic pieces of the ski community we have left. And here at Elan, we want you to support your local ski shop. You can find our list of dealers nationwide over at our website, elanskis.com, and remember, support your local ski shop. Last but not least this round is Best Day Brewing. And with snow season here, skiers, snowboarders, weekend warriors, tubers, sledders, snowmobilers, snowbikers, you get it. The doers of winter are getting ready to shred. And post-shred, it's all about apres. And this year, do apres the right way. Forget about the calories, forget about the alcohol, forget about getting in trouble on the way home, because with a beer from Best Day Brewing, you get all the flavor of your favorite beer, whether it be a West Coast IPA, a hazy IPA, a Kolsch, an Electro Lime, or my new favorite flavor, Nature's Pills. And you don't have to worry about anything but having your best day ever. Blind taste tests have proven that you won't be able to taste the difference between a Best Day and your favorite alcoholic beer. Really, the only difference is you're going to notice how good you feel in the morning after drinking a Best Day, and you're also going to remember what you did last night, which is almost as refreshing as a Best Day itself. So the next time you're at the store, pick up a 6-pack of Best Day, or order one on your next Alaska flight, or you can always buy some on Amazon or over at bestdaybrewing.com. Those are my sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. Is it like your dad sitting down with the marketing people? They come up with this calculated plan B of what they're going to do with this segment. And then they pretty much tell you, is your dad pretty much like, hey, so the next thing we're going to do for the next few weeks is we're going to film this thing for TGR for Jackson Hole and put it in the movie. It's like you don't really have a choice in it, but you would say yes regardless. But it's kind of like, hey, this is what we're doing.
I mean, I think it was pretty natural. We were staying at the inn in Jackson for spring break and we were just shredding. Like I was so young. I don't even think I realized the magnitude of what it meant to be filming a segment for TGR. Like I thought I was just skiing with Tim and it was my first time on a production and it was just the time of my life. And that's when I got introduced to all of it. And that first 11-year-old segment was all shot over spring break. And then I had to go back to school for the rest of the year.
I mean, can you describe how quickly that thing blew up? How you went from this unknown kid outside of Jackson Hole to everybody in the ski industry knows who you are?
Yeah, it was crazy because we just went and shot this segment for 2 weeks and I got to ski with one of my idols and I was almost a little ignorant to what was going on and how it would actually impact my life. And then TGR always tries to pull viral moments out of the film and the segment was really well received on tour and they uploaded it to YouTube and it's one of the top 5 most viral TGR clips ever. It got 5 million views and I didn't have any sponsors or anything before we shot that segment. I was getting flowed gear through TGR sponsors and stuff that would give my dad and my family gear. But I remember like that summer, like Atomic called and like Smith called and GoPro called. It was just like surreal. Like all my dreams were like happening so fast. And yeah, it was pretty special. Yeah, it brings a smile to my face, like thinking about how that all panned out. And honestly, it was like a lot of manifestation. Like I really like just had a dream and worked hard and skied a lot and loved it. And yeah, it was a testament to what happened with that segment. And it's crazy how it actually like played out and was received on the internet.
Have you had a video with more views than that since then?
No. Like my most like viral video since then was my next year's segment, which was like 500,000 views. And my latest video part, which I'm like most proud of, was like 160,000 views or something. So that was by far my biggest break I've ever got.
And what does that do to your social following? While you might not have channels right when this thing's coming up, or they might be really small, do you go from thousands to hundreds of thousands of followers in like a week?
No, I think for a lot of people, like I was just the 11-year-old YouTube kid from Jackson Hole. And over the past 7 years filming with TGR, I've got like 140,000 followers or something, but it's like slowly progressed. Obviously, like after that segment blew up, I probably got like 15, 20K that year. But since then, it's just like slowly ramping on social media.
When you blow up like that and everybody gets to have an opinion on your skiing and you as a person and everything about you, even though they don't know you, you get haters there as well. And what was the worst of the internet for you then?
That first year, like everything was received super well. People loved it. And TGI was like, oh, of course we're going to do that again. That was one of the most popular things we've ever done. And then the next year going into it, it was like similar riding and it was less special than this 11-year-old kid. Now it was like, okay, like his level obviously isn't that of all the other TGR skiers. Why is he in this? Oh, his dad's Todd Jones. And for good 2 years, I got a lot of hate and people credited everything I had and chalked it up to me being my dad's son. And it was definitely a bummer. And as like a young kid, it was hard for me to like understand why people were jealous and disliked me without even knowing me. But like in another quote from the movie, I remember getting some advice from Jared. He catches a lot of strays online through like his activism.
Dude,
And
it's the worst of it.
yeah, so he just like always said, like, look, man, you're going to get hate. And this stuff happens when you put yourself out there. And the best thing to do is to just move past it and keep doing your thing and keep living your life. You can't change what people are going to say online. I don't even look at my comments on Instagram. So I really look up to Jeremy. And I think that advice was really helpful for me. And I kind of just pushed past it. But I definitely had a chip on my shoulder to prove people wrong. And I definitely recognized that I had my opportunities early on just because of my connections into the industry. But from there on out, I was going to do everything in my power to not just be a good skier for an 11-year-old, but to be a good pro skier. And later down the line, I remember when that hate kind of started stopping when I got nominated for Rider of the Year among like all the best free skiers in the world at IF3. And that was like one of the proudest moments of my career because that was when I started to get to start my own chapter and build my own legacy past my family. So yeah, it's been crazy and the internet's a wild place, but it also gave me everything I have today. So it's like a lot of things. It's a double-edged sword, but without the internet and without YouTube, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I would never take anything back or change how anything happened.
And then you brought up your uncle, Jeremy Jones, who's just a badass snowboarder, and he takes a lot of heat online for his activism, like you said. And he can be a pretty serious dude, but I'm sure he's got a fun side to him as well. What's your funniest Jeremy Jones story?
Oh man, there's so many. Well, like, I mean, let's just go to today. We're looking at the surf forecast and it's like 1 to 2 feet and we're all pretty frothy. Like the whole Jones family's pretty frothy. And we go out and we're shredding. We're out there for an hour and we're kind of hunting some like bigger waves. And Jeremy's just alone out like way down the line, hitting all these like little runners. And we like talk to him after like an hour and a half and it's so flat and scratchy. And he's just like so stoked, so pumped. And he just like loves the glide. And we ended up like surfing for like 3 hours on like a day that like a lot of surfers wouldn't go out. And that's just like classic Jeremy. He just love a sport day, just always got a smile on his face, crushing no matter the conditions.
And when you go out in the mountains with Jeremy, with his kids and you guys, and it's like a whole Jones crew going out there, is it a fun type deal, or does Jeremy make you climb all these insane peaks that's almost type 3 fun?
I mean, yeah, we get into a lot of different stuff. So it's like, I remember last Christmas break we spent with the family. It was like one of the worst early seasons in Jackson. And he was just like, love a sport, training days. Like, we were just out there bell to bell, shredding icy blown snow, climbing like Cody Peak and riding like shaded crust. Yeah, he just loves it. And I think our whole family, his kids, me and my brother, my parents, like we just love like getting out in the mountains and stuff. So say it's like pretty mutual. Like he'll say like, yo, let's go climb Cody Peak and hit like a Four Shadows, and we're just all down and all stoked to like go for the adventure. But it's always nice to have the catalyst and the inspiration.
Yeah, and you've got like the best one in the world to do it with.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, Jeremy, like one of my favorite TGR moves ever is Tire. I look up to him so much and super stoked to be really close with him and be able to get like a lot of advice from him.
And then when you think about advice, you were talking about in the movie that you would study all the best skiers in the world when you're coming up. Like, are you watching them on VHS and rewinding tape and seeing what they're doing in the air? And then which are these skiers that are we talking about? Who were the top like 3 skiers in the game when you were watching people at that time?
I would say when I started to really get into it and like really analyze skiers and what they were doing was when I was 10 years old. And I've got like vivid memories of watching like the Sammy C project and Sammy's 24. And I mean, so many of his pieces are so good. And I really love like how he approaches the mountains and how he rides and the energy he rides with. So I was looking up to Sammy a lot. And then Nick McNutt's breakout, almost a blaze part. And then both of Tim's segments in Way of Life and Almost a Blaze, I would watch on repeat. So yeah, like Sage and Ian were my initial like heroes and idols growing up. But as I like developed my like own love for skiing and style, I related more to like what like McNutt and Durtschi and riders like Sammy were doing and the like freestyle element they would add. So yeah, I started to watch their stuff on repeat, and yeah, I'd study it like a book. And yeah, and I think it's like definitely helps shape like the rider and the style of skiing that I do today.
And after you exploded on the internet, when you look back at that time, did it almost rob you of a little bit of your childhood? Like once that came out, it's like it was all eyes on you, and maybe you didn't do some of the things that all the regular kids did because you were so focused on skiing?
No, I actually don't think so at all. My parents were really good at keeping things real and keeping things normal and not sheltering me from the real world. I still stayed in school for another year or two after my segment blew up, and then had to switch to online because I was basically going to fail because the amount that I was traveling for like competing or film trips. But I was still like on the ski team, like traveling with all my friends to the contests and stuff. And there's like little things like yeah, I've never gone to high school, and I'm sure there's like certain high school experiences that I've missed out on, but I've got to travel the world and see some of the most beautiful landscapes and meet amazing people, from skiers to guides. I mean, like the amount of like life that I've got to live at such a young age is so special, and I would never trade it for anything. And I've still got to like have such a fun childhood with my friends and stuff. And like come summer, like everyone's like hanging and vibing, and I'm not really traveling that much. I'm just doing a lot of school, despite from like going to Hood and stuff. So yeah, I get a lot of time living normal life, and I think that's super important to not like burn out or get too like strict and lose that childlike joy that you're always like chasing.
Yeah. And so we're going to keep coming back to your dad, I think, throughout this whole podcast because he's such a big part of your life and your career. but he's this legend. At the end of the day, he's still a dad. And what kind of nerdy dad shit does he do that no one would even know about?
Oh man. Yeah, he's so cool. At this point, like, it's ironic. Like, I think of him as a friend as much as like Tim's a friend to me. And I would say like the nerdy stuff he's up to, he's always ripping dad jokes and being like cheesy. And I love that about him. And it always keeps things lighthearted, especially in the mountains too. Like when you're in like some real situations, he always makes the situation, even gnarly situations, feel like fun and comfortable. So yeah, he's just like one of the boys. It's pretty awesome. Like all my friends call him Onk. Like yeah, he's just the man. So it's pretty fun. An exact story, like, and Jeremy too was like running this. They'd be like, hey, like Kyle, like, because I was planning the premiere for my film, and they would be like, oh, how's that family dinner coming out tonight? Like, are you got everything figured out? I'm like, oh yeah, I'm working on things a little bit. And then they'll be like, all right, things are falling into place. And I'm like, yup, yup. So like, he's just like classic stuff like that.
That's pretty funny. And he's also like the biggest Deadhead kind of guy. And are you into that music as well?
Yeah. So growing up, we listened to Dead 24/7, and I liked it for about a year. And then I started to listen to music on my own, and I hated it because of how much I was listening to it. And I'd be like, oh, that's just like dad music. I got my own shit. And then my dad actually took our whole family to my first Dead show, and went to the Sphere, and it was an unbelievable experience. And I like found my like own love for the Dead, and I've been listening to it like hella recently. It's like, I think it's like so cool, and I totally see it. So it's funny how it's like full circled.
And when you think of the playlists that you want to listen to when you need to get fired up, who's on it?
I listen to a lot of rap music too. So I'll listen to Kendrick, ASAP, Travis Scott. Like those are probably my top three right now. But I also love classic rock. I've been listening to a lot of David Bowie recently, which I've been vibing to.
Okay.
I'd say like our family's like big music culture, and so we listen to like all sorts of music. And I actually appreciate too, like my dad is always down to, like, he doesn't love the rap music and stuff, but driving into like a film shoot or like a big day, like he's totally down to like vibe out and let me get hyped. But then on the way home, we'll listen to like some Dead and Rolling Stones, Pink Floyd. I mean, yeah, I just love like all music, and it all just like depends on the vibe. Like if you're trying to get hyped and you're about to like drop into like a gnarly trick or line, like I'm definitely feeling the more like energetic rap. But if you're like mesmerizing after an epic day, like some more chill like jam band type music. So yeah, it just like all depends on the vibe, I feel like.
Okay. And then your dad is also, I would think, involved in a lot of your sponsorships. I don't know if you have an agent, or does your dad play the role of agent? How did that work for you?
Yeah, so I've actually never had an agent because my dad knows the industry, and I've taken over a lot of stuff recently. But yeah, my dad's been my agent for my whole career, and it's cool, and we've kept it friendly with everybody. And I think it's like why like I've only switched 2 sponsors in my entire career. So I think we just try and keep the vibes good with everybody. And yeah, it's sick that he's my agent because we're able to like align on things really well and pitch projects and make things happen.
And what's your sponsor list today?
Yeah, so my sponsors today are, here, let me rack them off for you. Red Bull, TGR, Atomic, Dakine, GoPro, Labent, and then Powell.
All right.
So yeah, I've got a lot of really good support and super thankful for it. They all help me pursue all the things that I want to accomplish in my career. And yeah, it's definitely like in the developing industry, I think it's becoming increasingly harder and harder to get sponsors and have like these long-term relationships. So super stoked with all the people behind me.
It's time for my second round of sponsors, and I'm starting this one out with Outdoor Research. Have you seen that black and white Mark Abma kit online or in the new MSP movie? If you haven't seen it yet, look them up before you buy your gear for this winter. They're sick. And not only are OR's products built differently and outperform just about anything thanks to being athlete and employee tested here in the brutal conditions of the Pacific Northwest, nowadays they have so much more style than the OR gear from just 10 years ago. When you bring in athletes like Mark Abma, Micah Evangelista, Zoe Atkin, Tom and Bass Van Steenbergen, and many more, and you have them sit down and work with designers and marketers, it's no wonder why the cuts and styles are looking a little bit different than that climbing-inspired OR gear that you used to see. It's really a game-changing difference in the fit and function of the gear, and the look, well, it really is incredible. And with the holidays right around the corner, get someone in your life the gift that will last over time. I can honestly say that I've loved OR since I bought my first raincoat from them back in 2000, and they truly make my ski days better. And while I may not be the best skier in the world, my outdoor research kit makes me look like a pro. And you can do the same thing by heading over to outdoorresearch.com, looking around the site, and treating yourself to the best. Next up, when it's cold out there, I don't hit the mountain without my Thermic heated socks. They are the original heated sock, and still the industry leader after 20 years. I mean, if your feet are frozen, it's going to ruin your day, and you're going to end up coming in early. And no one likes that. And that doesn't happen to me because I always wear my Thermic socks. And this year, they're better than ever. Thermic's new smart elastic technology heated socks, think a high-performance fitting thin ski sock where the patented heating components have stretch rather than a bulky heat band element. They literally feel like you're wearing your normal favorite pair of performance ski socks with heat. But if heat isn't for you, don't worry. Thermic has you covered with their athlete-tested and proven Dissent line of socks. Some of you may be blessed with feet that never give you issues, but most of us aren't, and that's where Dissent Labs comes in. They've engineered performance socks with their athlete team to eliminate things like chafing and heel blisters in your boots when you're touring or splitboarding. And for over a decade, the people at Dissent have been making socks that have a distinctive, locked-in fit that never seems to change, no matter what you get up to. At the end of the day, Thermic and Dissent socks are the go-to socks for people in the know. Drop into your local boot fitter and retailer and you'll see what I mean. My final sponsor is Stanley. And when Stanley started sponsoring this podcast, the story around the brand was that green bottle that keeps your grandpa's coffee hot. And that's still a story. But this week, they're totally changing the script. Actually, this year or the past few years, they're changing this script. And the latest big news around the brand is that they've signed Messi. The most famous soccer player in the world is part of the Stanley family. And while Stanley still sponsors me and Matchstick Productions, and most likely a snowboard movie that I don't know about, they've really matured as a brand over the years. I mean, they are the hottest or coldest cup in the world, and it feels like it. And it's still all about the product. Well, marketing with Messi and Olivia sure does help things, but if you don't have a great product, the marketing doesn't matter. And since Stanley has consistently had the best cups and bottles to keep things hot or cold since they invented the category in 1913, you need to check out what they're doing. While I still swear by the pint glasses that I use every day, which could be a perfect Christmas gift for the man in your life, I see so many other people out there drinking with that quencher cup, which is so popular. And I get it. For some reason, it makes you drink so much more water, and that's awesome. Really, these days, Stanley has something for everyone, and I'm going to save you 30% on all of your Stanley purchases. How am I going to do that? Well, when you head over to stanley1913.com and go shopping, then you check out, you want to enter the code POWELL30, that's a capital P-O-W-E-L-L, no spaces, the number 30, and you'll save 30% on all Stanley gear. Those are my sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. What's the most fun purchase that you've made for yourself? Do you have a truck or a sled or anything fun like that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm still a kid. I don't have like a lot of general expenses. And until I bought my truck, I literally like hadn't spent any money, but I got my license and I spent like 5 months like looking for the right car. And I like finally found my truck, and I've got a Chevy Silverado, and it takes me to a lot of fun places. So I would say like, for one, just like super proud of being able to like make that purchase. And that was one of the like only cool things I've purchased aside from like plane tickets and stuff.
Totally. And then the pinnacle of sponsorship is the energy drink sponsorship. And the best one to be on is Red Bull. And a cool thing they do with some athletes is the way they deliver their helmet in a special way. Will you tell the story of how you got your helmet?
Yeah, so I got my helmet from Travis Rice, and I'll never forget it. Growing up in Jackson, Travis is from Jackson, so he was one of my biggest inspirations outside of skiing, and the art of flight literally changed how I look at mountains. So I've always like idolized Travis. And I remember my dad like was trying to keep it under wraps, and I had no idea it was happening. and I was doing school, and I think I had my like finals due that week. So I was just like hustling on school super hard. And he's like, hey, like, we're going to Jackson. Like, let's go like take some bike laps at Jackson. I was like, no, what? And I can't do it today. Like, I'm so busy right now. And he finally like convinced me. He's like, you gotta go. Come on. It's gonna be a great day. Like, you can do school any day. And we drove to Jackson, met up with Travis. And I was like, no, wait, Travis is here. This is epic. And before this whole thing went down, like, I like kind of knew that like Red Bull was like talking to me, but it was like still not like completely confirmed. So we went up the gondola, and Travis was like, dude, Kai, like, check out like my new helmet. And then he flips it around. It has my name on it. And I think I literally started crying. I was so happy. Like the GOAT, Travis Rice, handing me a Red Bull helmet. That's like the ultimate dream. And yeah, that was a pretty special day.
And when you think about it, I mean, Travis is probably the best all-around mountain athlete I think that I've ever seen in my life almost. I mean, there might be someone better, but I can't think of them off the top of my head. When you think about it, have you ever ridden with him, just like taking laps on the mountain or anything like that?
So Travis is super elusive. Like I'll see him out on the mountain. He's got like a full black kit, black hood up, and tries to keep it like pretty discreet because he's a pretty big name in the snow. But I actually got to ride with him for my first time on a GoPro trip this year. And we were shooting for some of their new cams. And the back seat of the heli was myself, Sammy, Travis, and Bobby Brown. And if you asked me like, yo, Kai, if you could hop in a heli with anyone you want, I'd probably like say something similar to that group. So that was pretty sick. And it was dope to ride with Travis, especially just because like I've known him and I always see him around Jackson, but we like hadn't actually like got to ride together.
Well, the way he sees the mountain and his like smoother than cat-like ability to recover from anything, it's unreal. And then his power, well, the dude's just like incredible. Is it mind-blowing riding with him? Like when you see him, are you like, wow, that guy's light years better than other people that I ride with? Like, can you feel that in the flesh when you're with him?
Yeah. I mean, he does not seem real. Like it feels like you're watching a video game, and when you see it go down in real life, it's pretty mesmerizing and jaw-dropping. And it's just like inspiring to build off of too, because we were just shooting some product, but like his like energy and motivation is so contagious. Like we ended up stepping to some sick stuff because we all just like have that passion, but he's got like just that extra energy, and he just wants to like get out and always be like pushing the limits. So we'd be like building sick features, and we just got into some like rad stuff. I remember right after that trip, I was like, dude, like, why is this guy like the way he is? So I listened to like his 5-hour podcast traveling home, like literally straight. So yeah, he's super inspirational guy. And then, yeah, it was so sick to like actually get to shred with him.
Is there anybody comparable to him in the ski world, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough saying. I mean, the fact that like he's been able to impact the whole snow industry is pretty impressive. And I don't know, like there's skiers that have impacted the whole snow industry, but I don't think anyone's ever done it to the scale of Travis. And he literally not only revolutionized the skills, but how like productions are shot in like modern snow sports media with like the stuff that Brain Farm was doing. So no, I think like his like impact is so great. And the fact that like I'm a skier sitting here glazing him, like like it's just a testament to like how amazing he is.
And he puts in a ton of hard work to get to where he was or where he is, and it's pretty amazing. But you put in a lot of hard work as well. And I think it starts really young. Like how old were you when you started going to the gym and training year round when most kids weren't doing that?
Yeah, my mom got me into CrossFit pretty early on. So I started training CrossFit probably at like 8 years old, and then have slowly like developed my own like training programs and stuff. And I started to take it less seriously before my injury, but ever since I got hurt, I've been super active in the gym and super health conscious. So it's definitely been ingrained in me to like work hard to play hard for like my whole life.
Okay. And then how about learning tricks? I mean, when TGR was starting, if you wanted to learn a trick, you had to pay the price. But these days, there are so many tools to help you learn. What's been the most helpful? Is it water ramps? Is it foam pits? Or what have you used to help yourself get better without having to get injured?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most valuable resource for me has been my trampoline. I've like always loved trampoline. I probably in the summer log an hour, 2 hours a day on the trampoline, just like fine tuning that air awareness. The most helpful tool, without a doubt, is an airbag, but the airbag's pretty expensive and it's all the way down in Utah. So I've only done like 3 years of airbagging and done like one, 2 trips a summer, but the tramp has been a super consistent thing I've been like using since I was 4 years old, and it's like helped me like with just the motor skills and the repetition, and it's like literally a direct correlation to like these tricks you're doing. So just getting in the air is so crucial to learning tricks on snow.
Okay. And then when you do school that's different than everybody else's, I think you did you do Peekaboo Streets, like online school or something like that?
Yeah. So I go to Peekaboo Street Academy for my rest of middle school. I was just doing online school through the high school, but it was still like the same system, and you still had to like log the hours of a normal school day. You could just do it off campus and do it on the road. So we looked around for a while and I stumbled upon Peekaboo, and yeah, I've been going there for my entire high school schooling, and they've been super great and helpful with travel and building my schedule around skiing while also like prioritizing education. So yeah, that crew's the best.
And I would think that means probably no proms or homecomings or high school events like that. And you kind of alluded to that earlier, that you didn't really go to high school. But when you're that focused on skiing, is there even time for girls, or were your dreams all about going to Alaska?
Yeah, that's a funny question. So I've gone to a couple homecomings and stuff and had a few girls over the past couple years, but I've always been like too focused on skiing to lock up a girlfriend. But it's totally all good. Like the experiences and the stuff I get to do is so fun. And quite frankly, I couldn't be like a good partner to someone with the amount I'm traveling and focused on like my own career. So yeah, it's just like one of the costs of pursuing the professional athlete thing.
And you're only what, 18?
Yeah, 18.
Yeah. So it's like you have plenty of time for all that. So it doesn't really
Yeah,
matter.
it'll come.
And then how old were you when you went to Alaska the first time?
So I went to Alaska when I was 12, and it was a super short trip at the end of the year, and it was a really rad experience. But I like snapped a ski, like got bodied like 4 times, and after that trip, I was like, all right, like I got to start getting better if I want to do this stuff. And I think that year I started to like take the gym pretty seriously, and yeah, did a lot of training that summer, and then practice like my steep technical skiing. Cause like when you're a kid, you're just jumping around the mountain, like finding airs. And yeah, I'd go like get reps in on like Tower 3 and Corbett's, and just like Jackson's like the best training place in the world for skiing steep mountains up in Alaska. So the terrain in Jackson definitely lends itself to preparing you for Alaska. And then the next trip I got to go on, which was in Magic Hour when I was 16, had an insane trip and probably skied like the best run of my life, and was able to like throw tricks on spines and ski Alaska. I actually wanted to ski, which was cool to like see that progression from when I went for the first time.
And while that was the line of your life in Magic Hour, what was the scariest thing you've ever experienced in AK?
Oh man, AK is such a heavy place, and yeah, I don't even think I could chalk it up to like one scary moment. There's been like some gnarly lines, some gnarly heli drop offs and stuff. But thankfully, there's never been like any big real scares, because at like TGR, we like take the safety side of things really seriously, and we always have guides and the right people around us, and we don't press too hard when Mother Nature's saying no. So yeah, there's just been like some wild, yeah, heli drop offs and lines, but like that stuff's scary, but you prepare yourself. And I think there's a difference between being nervous and being scared. And I'm a normal human. I'm nervous on top of like any of the stuff I'm doing. But the second like it actually becomes like scary, that's when you know to like back down and pull off it. Yeah.
So TGR is known for being by the book and being all about safety and understanding all that. That's like the tight part of TGR. but then there's the loose part of TGR as well. And it seems like some of the guys like to throw down and have a good time. I'm all about that as well. But when you think about yourself, you're definitely underage and you grow up in ski towns where, you could probably sneak a beer here and there. And when you're a high school kid, do you go to parties and drink beer and do stuff like that? And what happens when your dad catches you doing stuff like that?
I've stayed away from that stuff for my whole life because I've seen the negative sides through growing up in the industry. And there's definitely like sad stories when it comes to partying and skiing. And for me, like I just prioritize my training and my skiing, and I'd never want anything to get in the way of that. So yeah, I'll go and like hang out and chill with the boys, but I definitely like try and stay away from the substances and stuff because I would never want it to like affect my skiing.
All right, man, that's the awesome level head that you have, and it's cool that you have that head. And let's see where I'm going to go from here. Your dad's created this empire with TGR, and he fast-tracked you into a life that no one's ever lived. Pettit maybe have lived that life, but his upbringing was way harder and different than yours. But anyways, when you think of your TGR highlight trip for terrain and conditions only, what would that be?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think the dream trip is always the Alaska trip with the stacked roster and people. And I've been lucky enough to get on a couple of those. This year, I got to go ski in Girdwood with CPG, with Sage and Ian and Alex Armstrong. And I've been looking up to Sage and Ian since I was a little kid, as we talked about earlier. So to like go ski Alaska was the ultimate like picture book dream come true for me. We got this photo after the first day, and if I showed myself the photo of me with my Red Bull helmet on and standing between Ian McIntosh and Sage Catabriga to 10-year-old Kai, he would have lost his shit.
Oh man, that's so cool. That's so cool. And then when you think about your personal favorite segment that you've put out, what is it?
I think this movie I could not be more proud of this body of work, but I'd say like my favorite, just like raw, like action riding segment is my Legend Has It segment. Got to do this crazy straight line, and it was by far like the gnarliest thing I've ever done. And that whole season, like I was riding so hard, and it was just like the energy was there and the conditions were there. And I filmed that whole segment in like a month, and some of the best riding that I've been up to. And obviously it came to abrupt halt when I got hurt. But yeah, that was a crazy year up until then.
Yeah, I mean, you got hurt on March 7th, but for that movie, it was like the third year in a row that you're up for Skier of the Year, and you're like 17 years old or 16 years old, which is crazy. But on March 7th, you get hurt. It's really bad. Can you tell us what happened?
Yeah, so like I was saying earlier, I was having the best season of my life, and yeah, I felt really, really comfortable doing a lot of gnarly lines and things, and things were going super well, and I was lacing everything that I put my mind to. And before I got hurt, I tweaked my shoulder, so I had to take 2 weeks off, and I was just like kind of hammering out school, didn't do any lower body maintenance during that time, and a big storm came in, and we went out to go film that day, and I wanted to go clean up this line that I skied earlier in the year that I backslapped on. And I hit this line, skied it exactly how I wanted to ski it. And right when I landed, both my legs instantly broke. And it was a undescribable feeling of pain, and it all instantly hit me. And yeah, it was really, really scary experience. And like early on, like I had no idea what had happened to me. Like I didn't know if I'd ever be able to like get back to skiing again. Like everything was just so fucked. And then we quickly transitioned into just getting me out of the backcountry and getting me to somewhere safe, and called search and rescue. They came super quick and got to the hospital. They're like, yeah, both your legs are broke. I did both my tibia tubercles and got thrown into surgery that night and spent the next 10 days in the hospital. First 5 days, I was like really mangled and beat up. And my parents were confused because like I've always been this like motivated kid, and I could barely move, and I was getting pale. And one of my buddy's friends saw that I hadn't got a blood draw after surgery, and they take blood and stuff very seriously at the hospital. So I got a blood draw, and I was 0.3 away from being critical anemic. And when you're critical anemic, that's when your body starts shutting down, and all your essential organs for life start shutting down. So that night was crazy. It was on the 5th night. And like 5 doctors came in. I got like a CT scan. I got an x-ray. I had like a tube stuck down my throat into my stomach to see if I was like internally bleeding. And thankfully, like we just chalked it up to like I lost a lot of blood, I guess, in the surgery because there's a lot of arteries around the site that I broke. And I thankfully got a blood transfusion and was able to recover 5 days later and get back to my house.
Man, I will say the footage of the injury is so hard to watch because you are in unbearable pain, screaming bloody murder. And we see that for like 10 seconds and it was really hard to watch. But how long did that pain last? I mean, are you out there for 30 minutes waiting for the heli and just in unbearable pain?
Yeah. I mean, so like I think right away I was in shock and I wasn't really screaming at all. And I was kind of on the verge of passing out because I was in so much pain. And come an hour probably until I got rescued, things started to get worse. The adrenaline started to wear off and the screams. It's funny, like, because it's a bit of Hollywood. I actually didn't have a mic on that day. So Ryan Cruz set up a GoPro and the audio is not from like instantly when I landed. It's actually from when the heli came and they had to like lift me into the stretcher. And I was stuck in this like bent position and my bone, it wasn't through my skin, but like it was sticking like out. Like there was like a huge bulge like out of my skin. And they had to like leverage my legs to move me into the heli. And there was like good 5 minutes of some of the most excruciating pain I think you can feel.
Oh man, it was so awful. And then it looked like when the heli was flying away, there was a long line down. Did they have you long lined at all? Or is that just like a shot that I noticed?
Yeah, they got me long line because I was on like a 46-degree slope. So the only way they were going to get me out was on a long line. They long lined me to the parking lot where an ambulance came and then the ambulance drove me to the hospital.
You end up having a second surgery, and I guess that maybe cleans everything up and gets you back to a position where you can start working out and getting yourself back to normal. Was it after the second surgery that you realized that you would have a future in skiing again?
Yeah, so the first surgery, I went back home. I was home for 3 weeks and I was like doing PT and Red Bull was like supporting us with help from the APC team. And once like we got through the NAR, and so it was like, I'm going to get back to skiing despite what anyone has to say. We had a home help person come over and yeah, he told me I'd never ski again and that I would never get back to my level again and that I should just focus on learning how to walk again. And yeah, after that, never had that crew back. And then I went to Stedman and Hackett was one of the first people to tell me that I'd be able to ski again. So we made the effort to get to him and he did a super amazing job. He repaired my lateral meniscus and my medial meniscus. And I was still in a wheelchair for another, I think 9 weeks after that surgery. And then when I started walking again, I went down to California for the greater part of 7 months, training with Red Bull to get back to skiing.
And are you putting 40 to 50 hours a week in the gym to get yourself back?
Yeah, I don't even know the amount of hours. I would show up probably at like 8 o'clock before I was even allowed and be waiting for someone to let me in. And then I would go like cold plunge, make myself a smoothie. And then I'd go train for 2 hours, do an hour of PT, and then do like cognitive training. I was just doing everything I could at that point, and I was so motivated to do whatever it took to get back to skiing.
How hard is it to take a poop when you have two legs that are locked straight in braces in a wheelchair?
So that was so gnarly, and it was a shocker because my legs were stuck in, they're called knee immobilizers. So we had to like set up a bench for my legs, and I had to do these technical wheelchair transfers to like get on the toilet and like get in the shower. And that was the most effort of my entire day, probably for those like first couple weeks.
I can't imagine. It's miserable. And then when you finally come back and you get on snow, I'm sure you're not 100% when you get back. Was there a lot of pain?
Those first days and couple weeks of skiing, I think I expected that I was just going to get back and like be feeling good because I put in like so much work, but instantly I knew that it was going to be a long process to get back. And everyone told me that, but I didn't necessarily believe that. But I just kind of like went back to the basics and was like, all right, I need to keep training. So I was doing like strategic days off and training days. And I just slowly like worked into the winter. And over the first 3 months of the season, I was hitting the gym, I was skiing groomers, I was keeping it really light. And then a week before Alaska, I went and built a jump with Parkin and Tim, and I sent a dub back, a dub flat, and a cork 7. And that was like the first time where I could see my like normal self again. And then I did everything I could to prepare myself for Alaska. And there's definitely some like uncertainty. You never know until you actually go. And my first day back filming, I was standing on top of like one of the biggest lines I've ever rode in my life. But I just relied on like all the hard work I put in. And I honestly didn't really have like much PTSD. And I think that's a super important thing with mental health. You never want to suppress your emotions. I was working through that throughout my entire recovery, and I was content with everything that happened. And I understand the risks of going back into these serious mountains. And I just relied on like the work that I've been putting in for the past 7 years of my career to take me through that trip. And I had the best Alaska trip of my entire career. And it was a pretty special experience. A year later to the day, I did a backflip into a line in Alaska and sent probably, I think it was like a 25, 30-foot cliff to another 10-foot cliff double. And I started bawling, crying at the end of the line, just thinking about everything I'd gone through to like get back to the here and like to like feel these feelings again and like to be like riding. And it's like these trials and triumphs and the biggest failures in your life, like they make you so much more grateful for the opportunities and the lifestyle. And ever since this like whole injury, I've had such a like better understanding of the life I get to live. And yeah, I'm so thankful to be back and to be feeling good. And yeah, you never know, at the snap of a finger, your life can change. So it's so important to just live up life and be thankful to roll out of bed and do what you love. So yeah, really stoked to have this big learning experience at such a young age. And I wouldn't take any of it back. Like it's all happens for a reason. And I'm a better person today for everything that I went through, as much as it was really difficult and shitty.
All right. Well, then you go and you put out another Skier of the Year nominated segment, which has to be amazing for you. And I would normally talk about that, but I know you have a hard stop pretty soon. And we have one more segment of the podcast that we have to get through. It's something that I call Inappropriate Questions. And this is, this is where I get someone that you know to ask 3 questions, and they can be anything. And this week I was able to get your fun uncle, mentor, your TGR legend, Tim Durtschi, to ask the inappropriate questions. And first, before Tim puts you on the hot seat, can you tell us a fun Tim story that no one knows that may embarrass him?
Oh, man. One that was like pretty funny. We were in the onsen in Japan, and you're not allowed to wear any clothes or anything. And that whole experience was so funny because I was still like such a grom, and him and Coulter went and like jumped out a window and just like launched into the snow and got like stuck outside. Yeah, that was a whole scene. That was a pretty good memory.
That's the memory there. So now we will go into Tim's asking you questions. And are you ready for question number 1 from Tim?
Yeah.
What's up, Kai? I got 3 inappropriate questions for you, bud. The first one's easy. What's the difference between a lentil and a chickpea?
So this is funny because I didn't understand this joke for a long time. And like a low key, yeah, like still like no one's actually ever like told me the joke. But the joke is, what's the difference between a lentil and a chickpea on your chest? And yeah, I think a lentil is some kind of like bean or something.
Yep.
And then obviously a chickpea on your chest. But I thought that it was like a chickpea that was like a bean. So yeah, they would always like mess with me and like laugh about that joke. I'm like, I don't get it. It's the same thing. So yeah, that's funny.
All right. That's number 1. He said that was easy. Let's see if they get harder with number 2.
I saw you risen that girl in Laguna Beach. What's the story? Did you pull?
Now, a guy Tim's age dropping the risen and did you pull sounding like he's a 13-year-old. He's like too old to be using that language, I feel like, although no one's too old to use any language. I just wanted to throw that out there, but did you pull?
No, I did not. I've got a track record for having El Riz. Tim will find that funny, but it's all good. At least winter's coming and the resorts are open now, so I can suffice by just going and shredding Powell.
All right, here we go with your final inappropriate question.
I've always heard it's bro code not to go for your best friend's sister. Did you learn your lesson, or are you still going to go for it?
Is he talking about Erica?
No. That would be pretty rogue, but it's actually a funny story. My super good friend, the girl I actually went to homecoming with, we were hanging out for a couple years. And yeah, things didn't shape up, but yeah, we're super chill now. And yeah, I think it's like probably not a good move. So I have learned my lesson, Durtschi.
All right, so that was Inappropriate Questions, and that's our podcast. And you've had this insane career for like 7 years now. From like 11 to 18, you've gotten more exposure than almost every skier out there outside of Candide. And you're so young. And even with your huge injury, you're back and the world's your oyster. And sure, you need to risk a lot to do what you're doing, but also don't do what you did in 2023. First, the human body can't handle too many of those. Second, it sucks when it hurts to shit. And third, skiing needs you. So play the long game. It's fun watching you ski. And if you were to dial it back to 11, I think a lot of people could live with that. But anyways, thank you for telling your story. Thank you for your time, and get back to your Mexican vacation.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, that was a great conversation. It was actually like the chillest like podcast I've ever done. That was just like, felt like a conversation with a cool person.
So that was time with Kai Jones. And after I had Tom Shar on the podcast when he was only 17, I told myself no more kids on the show. While they may win contests, they haven't done that much else in life, and they don't make for the best stories. Well, maybe that was specific to Tom, and I hope to get another great interview with him one of these days. But with Kai, he was a true pro. While he's only 18, you can tell he's lived a lot and he's learned so much from his travels. It was refreshing to chat with a kid like that. And if he keeps doing what he's doing, in 20 years, we'll be looking at Kai as one of the greatest to ever do it. Please check out his movie, Falling Into Place, that drops on December 3rd. It really is an amazing story of a kid who sends bigger than most adults, and he's also got a really grounded head. He's an awesome kid, and I'm stoked to be able to chat with him on this podcast. That's the show. At this point, please review me wherever you listen, tell a friend about the show, and get up on the mountain. The season is here for most of us. Last but not least, I want to thank my incredible sponsors for making this podcast happen. They are Insta360 Cameras, Elan Skis, Outdoor Research, Best Day Brewing, Stanley, and Thermic and Dissent Socks. Have a great week, everyone.